Hello and welcome to iCast Fireball. In this video, we will be making a character sheet. For the purposes of simplicity, I will be using D&D Beyond, so feel free to follow along with your own D&D Beyond or another platform or even just a sheet of paper. Just a heads up, I may go a little bit fast for your liking, so if you feel like that's the case, just pause the video until you catch up. Let's do it. All right, so the first step to D&D Beyond is to make an account. It's pretty simple. You're just going to want to come up here, click the free sign up button, enter your email, create a password and a username, and you'll be done with that step. I'm going to go do that. Be right back. Okay, so now that you've made your account, you're going to want to come click the create a character button. Once that loads up, you should see these three blue boxes. For the purposes of this video, we will be going through the standard method, mostly because it gives you the most autonomy when creating your character. Go ahead and click that button. And this is where the fun begins. Now you are able to name your character. I'm not usually the best at creating names on the spot, so usually I just type, erase, and refine gibberish until something clicks, hence one of my characters' names being Nicarasho, or sometimes I just change some letters of a word. There have been times where I just translate a word that sums up my character's personality into Greek or Latin, and sometimes I just go with the name of a flower or stone. I'm going to pick Jade for my character's name. Your character can be whatever you want it to be. You don't have to worry about flicking a whole bunch of these switches, but if you do not have physical dice, make sure this dice rolling thing is enabled so it's red. It'll act as physical dice, right? Now we're going to come to the next page by clicking this arrow, and now it's time to pick your character's race. If you have time, I highly recommend going through and just reading all of the short little descriptors that are provided here. But if you don't have time, I'll just give a quick rundown on the races now. An Aarakocra is basically just half bird, half human. Their main ability is to fly on their bird wings, but they also have talons that they can use as weapons. I will say that they do not appear as angels, more as massive birds of a humanoid stature that have wings on their back. Dragonborn is similar to what it sounds like. Half dragon, half human. They have a breath weapon and resistance to a damage type of your choice. For example, if you pick Fire Dragon, your character will be able to breathe fire and only take some of the damage from, say, a fireball. A quick disclaimer, these Dragonborns did not inherit draconic wings from their parentage, so they won't be able to fly without the help of a spell or other magical effects. Dwarves and elves are very similar to the dwarves and elves of the Lord of the Rings universe, with dwarves being on the shorter, stronger, goal-focused side, and elves being on the tall, agile, knowledge-focused side. Of course, it is completely allowed to have an agile dwarf or a really buff elf. This is just typically what they're played as. Genasi are pretty cool. Just picture an element that has been shaped and confined into a humanoid form. There are 4 elements, so there are 4 kinds of Genasi: air, earth, fire, and water. Each different kind of Genasi will have a different elemental ability, depending on which element the Genasi is from. Moving on to gnomes, the best way that I can describe a gnome is to take the agileness of an elf and the shortness of a dwarf. It's like if you took one of each of their races and smashed them together, you'd get a gnome. Goliaths are really fun to play if you're envisioning your character to be as big and strong as they can possibly be. They are literally half mountain giant, and their giantish blood gives them an edge over almost any human. Although I'm sure that Chris Hemsworth could beat at least 2 in a fight. Half elves and half orcs are both pretty easy to explain. A half elf is, as the name entails, half human and half elf. And a half orc is similar, but instead of having elvish parent, they have an orcish one. So half human, half orc. A halfling is pretty much just a hobbit from the Lord of the Rings universe, and a human is a human. You're looking at one, at least as far as you know. That brings us to tieflings and Azamar. Azamar? Asmar? Hang on. As I was saying, that brings us to tieflings and Aasimar. They are probably the most confusing races. A tiefling is like a human with a little bit of demonic blood in them because they are the descendants of a demon or a devil. They're usually associated with evil, but I must say there are few things that bring me as much joy as playing a tiefling that is just happy about everything. An Aasimar is similar to a tiefling, but instead of having demonic blood, they have angelic blood. They're on the other end of the spectrum. Their grandparents or great-grandparents may have been angels or demigods. I am going to make Jade a dragonborn. This is the one with the breath weapon and the resistance to the damage that I choose. I'm going to pick the gold dragon. As you can see by this table, the color decides what damage your breath weapon and your resistance are. A gold is fire. And since I picked gold, she will be able to breathe fire and also only take half damage when she is subjected to fire. Next, we are going to choose a class. I'm not going to go super in-depth about all the classes in this video. I'm thinking sometime in the future, I will have a video series where each video kind of dedicates itself to explaining a class. I'll just give a quick summary now. A barbarian gets their power from their anger. Basically, picture Hulk smash. Bards get their magic from their music or the words that they speak. They're inspirational. Clerics are magicians that get their powers from gods. Druids are nature wizards. Fighters usually focus on swords and shields and armor and sort of a knight style of combat. And monks, at least in the world of D&D, are martial artists. Paladins are like a mix between a cleric and a fighter, and a ranger is sort of like a mix between a druid and a fighter. Rogues are thieves, and sorcerers, warlocks, and wizards are all magic users, arcanists, although they get their powers from different places. I am going to make Jade a druid. So right now we have a golden dragonborn who has nature magic. Pretty strong character so far. Now we pick proficiencies. This is where your character's personality really begins to shine through. The class that you choose for your character heavily impacts what kinds of things they would know how to do. For example, a wizard probably doesn't know how to do crazy flips, having spent most of their life studying books to learn magic, but a monk spending their whole life learning martial arts would probably know how to do those same flips. So a wizard would not be able to take the acrobatic skill. A monk would. I think I want Jade to be the kind of person that picks up on everything, but is still socially awkward. And also I want her to like animals more than she likes people. To reflect that, I'm going to pick up the perception and the animal handling skills. Next is to pick ability scores. We're going to hit this next button and we'll be brought to this screen. This is totally allowed to look confusing at first, but I'm going to explain it quickly now and more in depth in a future video. Each one of these 6 abilities controls a different part of your character. For example, a higher strength score means that you're stronger, you can hit harder, you can lift heavier things, and a higher charisma score makes you more charismatic. You're able to talk to people, be more effective in conversations. We're going to pick this choose a generation method button here and come down to standard array. As you may be able to see, I just received 6 more drop-down menus. and each one of them contains the same numbers. I am going to assign these numbers to different abilities depending on what I want Jade's personality to be. So as you can see, I went ahead and did that. You may be saying, well, why did you do that, Dylan? What is your reasoning behind assigning these numbers to their particular abilities? To which I reply, quiet, I'm about to tell you, stop interrupting me. I'm sorry I yelled at you. Wisdom is pretty important for the class that I picked. It is how druids cast their spells. Quick side note, it is not how every class casts their spells. Some classes use charisma, some classes use intelligence, but druids in particular use wisdom, and that's why I picked wisdom to be the highest. I made dexterity the second highest because I want Jade to be super agile. I want her to be able to dodge things and get into places she wouldn't otherwise be able to get into. I want her to move. I also want Jade to be able to take more than one hit before she goes down, which is where Constitution comes in. The higher the Constitution I have, the more health I have. For intelligence, I wanted her to not be super smart, but I also didn't want her to be stupid, which is why I gave her the score of 12 there. For the 10 in charisma, I've said before that I want Jade to be a little bit socially awkward, which is why I put the 10 there. A 10 is +0. Strength isn't really important to me when it comes to D&D. It's the stat that I use the least, unless I'm playing, say, a barbarian or a fighter. That's why I dumped the 8 there. Also, adding the bonus that I get from being a dragonborn, that bumps it up to a 10. So +0 again. All right, I'm liking this character more and more. Now we're going to click back to the page we were just on. It's time to learn some spells. If you did not pick one of the classes that can cast spells, feel free to skip this part. Since I picked the druid class, I can cast spells at first level. So I'm going to come here into spells and then down here into known spells. Now there are hundreds of different D&D spells, and I'm not going to tell you which ones to pick. I'm sure that there are people on the internet that have the feeling of my way and only my way. You can only pick these certain spells. But if you're having trouble picking your spells, the best thing that you can do is call your dungeon master and ask which spells he, she, or they think would work the best in your current campaign. And while you pick your spells, I'm going to go pick mine. Okay, so I went ahead and picked my spells, all of which I feel would become useful in a campaign or fit my character's personality pretty well, and here they are. The cantrips I picked are Druidcraft, which lets me make a flower bloom or some other natural effect happen immediately. It lets me know the weather for the next 24 hours, and it lets me instantly light or snuff out a campfire. I also picked Produce Flame, which just gives Jade a little fireball that she can fight with. Those are the spells that Jade can cast an unlimited amount of times. That's what a cantrip is. The spells that do have a limit are Healing Word, which lets her heal a friend, Speak with Animals, which is pretty self-explanatory. It lets her speak with animals, and Thunder Wave, which hits everything in a 15-foot cube around me and also pushes everything that I hit back 15 feet, depending on how strong they are. Now that we've done her spells, it's time for her background. So we're going to click over here twice, so we are in the description panel. Now, there are a lot of different backgrounds that you can use, and each one gives its own unique abilities. Work with your dungeon master to pick what your background is to make sure that it can fit into the world well. So I'm going to come in here to the background panel here and click the choose an option drop-down menu here, and I get to pick from any of these. I think I'm going to pick the criminal spy background. Maybe Jade was ashamed by her past as a criminal and retreated into the woods to learn druidic magic to maybe help the planet that she had previously harmed. I like that. Picking a background gives us an entirely new perspective on how our character might act. It helps us role play them. Also, a bonus is that we get really cool abilities. As you can see, Jade now knows deception and stealth and has proficiency with thieves tools, which lets her kind of sneak around, lie, and break locks. Although if she was ashamed of her past, then she probably won't want to do this. I also get to pick a game that Jade can know. Let's go with Dragon Chess. That sounds like fun. These things down here are not necessary to fill out. They're for those times that you don't really know how your character is going to act and think and look. If that's the case, then go crazy. It really helps. But if you already have a clear idea of how your character is going to look, think, and act, then you don't really need to do these because it'll kind of meddle with that idea in your head and make you want to change your mind because maybe the official thing is better. And while sometimes that's true, at least for D&D, sometimes your original ideas are better. All right, now we have equipment and then we're done. So we're gonna come click the next button. Now, each class has different equipment that they can and cannot use. For example, a fighter might start out with heavy armor and powerful weapons, while a wizard might start out with a wand and no armor. In my particular case, here are my options. Let me click the equipment to see those. I can either have a wooden shield or a simple weapon. I think I want Jade to be the kind of person that defends before she attacks, so I'm gonna pick a shield. I also can have either a scimitar or any simple weapon. I think I'm gonna go with a scimitar. It's like a long curved sword. It's a pretty good weapon. The last thing I pick is a druidic focus, and this is how I cast my spells, how I channel my magic, similar to how Thor channeled his thunderous power through his hammer. I'm channeling my nature magic through this focus. The magic is coming from me and from nature, but I need a little bit of help to cast the spells themselves. I think I'm going to go with a wooden staff, mostly because it just looks cool. It doesn't really matter which one I pick. Like if I were to pick the U wand, it would not change the way I cast the spell. It's just flavor. So yeah, I'm going to pick the wooden staff. Okay, so we'll click the red Add Starting Equipment button, and we're faced with this screen here. Anything that has a little green and white button that says wear or wield or equip, you're going to want to click that button because it won't show up on your character sheet if you don't. And it's just a pain. You've already gone through the process of adding it and it's just not there. You're not able to use it. So make sure that all of these buttons are green and it says wearing, wielding, or equipped. So assuming that you've done that, we're going to go ahead and click the next button to be brought to this. You can click Export to PDF if you want to print out your character sheet. But if you want it to stay digital, then we are going to come over here and click the View Character Sheet button. And there she is, or there he is, or there they are. There's your beautiful character that you just created. I'm so proud of you. There's only one thing left in the video, and that is to roll the dice for the very first time. If you wish to attack something, then you're going to come down here and hit the hit DC. And if your dungeon master says you hit like a 23, say, yeah, that might hit a goblin that's attacking me. I would roll the damage for that. And I got a 6, not a bad roll, and do 8 damage there. So it does the math for you, which is nice. But you can also use physical dice with this and add the number yourself. And of course, there's the ability checks and the skill checks, and we're gonna touch more on that in the next video. Also, if you want to find your character again, which is a very high possibility, you just gotta go to Collections and then My Characters, and there you are. There's your beautiful character right there. Anyway, that's all for this time. If you enjoyed this video or it helped you understand D&D even a little bit better, feel free to hit the like button and click the subscribe button with post notifications turned on so you don't miss out on any future video I add to the channel. If you have a question, drop it down in the comment section and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I'll see you next time, and may the dice roll ever in your favor.